incredible.
Wow. Oh my God.
Wow.
That was worth the ride up, wasn't it? Just that view alone. Hairpin gravel roads is crazy.
We're on our way to the Simeon National Park. This is the Ethiopian island. This guy was just talking about how miles was beginning to run out of the sky. It's now beginning to feel like that too. So.
I couldn't be happier than you've been doing it over with. It was great. Okay, let's do it. Very liberating. This is us on the road, Charlie. This is us on the way, man. One of the things I love the most about these trips is being in these huge spaces, you know? And the beauty of it and the vastness of it. I just love this. I love seeing Mother Nature like this. Oh, shit! Funny how quickly a great morning can turn into a really crappy afternoon, isn't it? You just keep falling over. I've got this horrible feeling we're going to have to turn back. All of our house is just a bit of tarmac, you know? Look at this! It's a road! Tarmac. Look how smooth it is.
He got that because if we would hit that, he'd be going to be a like, yeah, take it
my new friend.
Completely, utterly blown away.
Ultimately, we're not any different from one another, you know? We all love our kids. We all need somewhere to sleep. We all need some food. The world isn't that big a place, and we've ridden every inch of it on the back of motorcycles.
Good evening, Nottingham! Thank you. You don't need you, Charlie. Thank you all for coming to our little evening of chat. I've got some good news and some bad news. So the good news is you're all here, and the good news is that Dave and I are here, but the bad news is Ewan and Charlie aren't here. Now, they've got lost somewhere in Nottingham, and we're not sure where they are, but they are close. But we thought we'd start with me and Dave. First of all, having a little chat and doing a bit of a Q&A with you.
Actually, Russ.
Just to sort of plan time out.
Russ, I'm hearing that they've just entered the building. Hold on a second. Can you guys do me a favor? Can you help me with a warm round of applause for Britain's own? Let's get them up here. Come on up here. They're here on their long way home motorbikes. Ladies and gentlemen, Ewan McGregor, Charlie Morgan. Thank you. Hello. Well, how are you all? Thank you so much for coming out. It's so nice to see you all. Good to be here.
It feels a little bit
Yo!
like, it feels a little bit like Bulwer Street when we did Long Way Round,
Yeah.
you know, all those 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
No, and we got all our stuff. We were so exciting getting ourselves, finding that place, getting it set up with tools and getting the two bikes parked in there, and then all the posters up on the, well, all all the posters up on the wall for a little while until some of them came down.
Yes, well, yeah.
Oh.
That was
Well, shall we have a look?
Let's have a look.
So, as Ewan said, we've recreated a little set here of our workshops over the years.
Yeah.
And it was famously...
Sorry, left my light on. Beg your pardon. Yeah. Cheers.
Oh no!
That's it. It's an old police bike, so you can leave the lights on, which is a mistake for me.
Mother and cheering lighting him up.
I was like that guy. Sorry.
We thought we'd start with quite a famous little moment in our workshop at Bulwer Street on Long Way Round, if anybody hasn't seen it, where we were expecting to go on KTM motorcycles. I don't, but do you remember this bit? And for some reason, they changed their mind.
quite right. What happened?
See what happened?
Is it in my home?
And of course, we're KTM this morning from the
Yeah.
K of KTM.
They don't want to give any of the bikes.
Correct.
I don't understand.
What? Fuck's sake!
But wasn't this meant to say that you couldn't do it? I mean, that it was not possible to do this?
Because of what details? It is an adventure after all, and the idea is that we go on an adventure, you know. Okay, well, thank you for your time. Thank you. Bye-bye. They think that we might fail.
And we're doing the BMW. It's one big mistake. What a business.
John McEnroe, eat your heart out.
It's so embarrassing. But you know, the problem with that was that I really bullied everybody into going with KTM. Really, you wanted, you know, really the BMW was the better choice, really.
I remember being in the car. We tested lots. We had like a road test on the 1150, the BMW GS 1150 in Wales, and we got there, and I just couldn't. I looked at the bike, and I thought, I've never ridden anything that looks this. Like, it's so big. You stand at the back of it, it's like this wide. And then we pulled up out of the car park, and you wheelied out of the car park, as was your wont to do. But as soon as we got going, I couldn't believe how nicely it went round the corners for something that big, and it just felt solid, you know. Then we got hold of a KTM, and I remember us riding around Richmond Park. Do you remember?
Terrible traffic as well.
Terrible, but you just loved it so much. Your heart was in it so much. And then we tried, I think, Suzuki was it? Yeah.
And a Honda.
And a few other bikes. And we were riding back down from that, riding one of the Japanese bikes. I can't remember where we were. And we were coming back down on the motorway, and we're sitting in the back of the car. And I said, well, you know, just quietly to Charlie, I said, you know, there's only one bike, really, that we've ridden that is the right bike for what we want to do. And Charlie looked at me like this. Which one? And I slowly said, the BMW. And I could see your heart sink. So we did decide to go on the KTMs, and we made that decision.
I don't know why. I mean, I'm nothing, you know, and it's a little bit like, you know, when something terrible happens, or there's a disappointment or something like that, and you don't quite get what you think you want. And I think there's always a reason why something like that happens.
Yeah.
And often because that door closes, you know, often another door opens, and you know, it actually ends up being better. And I think for sure, I mean, you were right all along that BMW was the right thing. You know,
Sorry, Charlie. Did you admit somebody else was right?
We have some witnesses, that was
It happened, it's filmed, it's
Yeah.
been recorded. Right.
No, but it was true, because we really, I mean, me particularly, I really threw that bike on its side a lot of the time in Mongolia. I remember in a river, we're crossing gravelly river beds, do you remember? It's just like thunk, thunk, down it would go. I dropped it in a river, we emptied water out of the exhaust pipes, and it just kept going. It was
unbreakable in my, even though I tried very hard.
But this is a chance to tell people how you guys first got into motorbikes.
Oh yeah.
Hang on.
Oh.
Before that, just one other thing that we did in Bulwer Street, and I haven't done it since,
Right into the.
is Charlie's trip with the Maltesers. I'm going to throw these out to anybody. I'll recognise you from earlier. You can distribute
Me
these.
too.
And yourself.
Just watch your eyes, and we take no responsibility for any injuries.
Charlie does this trick with the
These guys keep on
Malteser.
sounds over here.
Have we got the clip of it? No, we're just going to
I
do
haven't
it.
got the clip of it.
It's I meant to do as well.
Well, Charlie, hang on, where's the camera?
Give me a couple.
Oh,
Okay,
can you
so-
zoom in on Charlie?
Now, let's not try to put them in the sofa because
I know we're both wearing white trousers.
So the idea is you have to blow the Malteser in the air and swallow it.
Oh, I did it a wee bit. Oh, very good. That was quite good. Russell.
You've been practicing. Okay, that's the end of the show. Thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. That's the best we got. No. But you were saying how you got into motorbikes.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie, you start because you rode first. You were riding since you were a young one.
Yeah, I started riding, and my father's a film director, and he made a guy called Sir John Bourne.
Sir John Bourne.
He made films like Deliverance, Excalibur, and Hope and Glory, lots of movies. And I remember Dad was making a film called Zardos with Sean Connery, and his son Jason, who was this annoying little older boy, found a little Honda monkey bike in the stables, and we pushed this thing, kept pushing it, and finally got it going. I was only like 6 years old, and he was 7 or 8, and he went riding along, and finally I got to go on it, and I had to go, and I was so proud that I could ride this motorbike. And Dad and Sean were standing on the outside Dad's house, and because Sean was too cheap to pay for a hotel, he weaseled his way into living with Mum and Dad, and he would pay rent. So I rode past them, and as I rode past them, my father grabbed my hair and pulled me off the motorcycle. And I was dangling there like a troll, looking really angry at my father. And then we both looked at the motorbike, and it just went straight into a barbed wire fence.
Wow, saved your life.
That was the first time I rode a motorbike. And then after that, a guy called Tommy Rochford.
But you grew up in Ireland riding bikes.
Yeah.
You tell these great stories about the local guard. I know like Charlie would strap a torch, just tape a torch onto the handlebars as a headlight, and we'd go around to his mate's house and ride back, and the guard would stop. You were only probably like
I was 14.
14 or something.
Yeah, 15 offences against me, and illegal bike, illegal tyres, underage, no insurance, no tags, no license, no lights. And the only reason he caught me was because I was with another bloke, and it was a white light, red light, white light, no light. So he just waited for me, and then he said, "Right, go home." And I was about 10 miles from home. I was like, so I started pushing the bike. He goes, "No, Charlie, get on the bike and ride."
I know. Yeah.
Anyway, my father then gave me the other pages and said, "Look up a lawyer, because you'll need one." I couldn't even spell lawyer. So, anyway, but yeah, that's how it started, and then it's just a love affair after that.
Yeah.
But you Mac, you
Well, I had the
interesting
same. I wasn't allowed to have. The first time I ever rode a bike was when I was just little, and my dad was the chairman of, there was a charity organisation called the Round Table in Britain. I don't know if it still exists, it may do. And my dad was at the Round Table, my mum was in the ladies one, which was the ladies circle. And he's called Jim, I can't tell this story anymore. Anyway, he had this, it's called Jim, and he did this thing where he made kids would write in with things they wanted to do. My dad would make that happen. I don't know, you could call it something, but so I just realised. No, I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going there. But my dad, this little boy wanted to ride a motorbike, and my dad had a friend called Gordon Halley, who was an amazing trials bike rider, and he did that 6-day trials up in Scotland. He took me a few times to watch, and so he got this little. It must have been like a 70cc or 50cc
monkey bike, and this kid got to ride it around a field. And after it was done and dusted and the wee boy had gone home, I think I was about 5 or 6 or 7, he said, "Do you want to have a go, Ewan?" And I was like, for sure I wanted to have a go. But I didn't realise until I opened the throttle, and something happened to me then that I still feel now, you know, with that excitement of like, oh, you twist that throttle and off you go. And I rode around this field and I thought that this is heaven for me, you know. And then I wanted to have a bike when I was 16 and I wasn't allowed, they wouldn't let me, which is fair enough, you know. When I was young, a lot of parents don't want their 16-year-olds to be riding around on bikes. And when I left drama school when I was 20, I realised, you know, I'd done my first job, and I realised I didn't have to do what my parents said anymore, you know. So I went and I got a 4-stroke 100cc Honda, little commuter bike. I've tried to find one because I'd like to have one, but I've never seen one since. And that was the first bike I ever rode. And then I had that for a year or so, and then I got that black Moto Guzzi there that you see on that picture.
Oh, that picture there.
And that was my first big bike.
Yeah, but that
which relates to this one, you know, because I had a love affair with Moto Guzzi from that bike that I've also never got over.
I love that bit.
Or that bike.
I love the bit that you talked about how your parents would come by and the motorcycle would be in front of your flat, and they'd ask you who that was. You're like, "Oh, it's the guy next door," or something. What was that?
I had a nice friend upstairs called Elska, and she whenever my mum and dad were coming to visit, I'd knock on her door and say, "Can I put my bikes down?" She'd let me. I'd put all my helmet and my gloves and my jacket in there, and my boots, so that my parents wouldn't see it. And they walked past this bike. They walked past it hundreds of times when they'd visit me in London before I had the courage to tell them it was mine. Yeah. I loved it. I loved I couldn't believe. I feel like I was sort of born to do it. You know, like I'd always wanted. I still feel that way. Like we shouldn't really be allowed to do it. There should be some happy police that come along and go, "No, that's far too much fun. You shouldn't be doing that." You know, it's amazing.
But funny enough, well, that motorbike kind of leads on to how one of our first conversations that we've ever had together.
Yeah.
You know, when we met.
And that moves us on to this little picture.
Yeah. With the serpent's ears.
It's not easy to do them. It's not easy to do a plume up someone's nose without hurting them, is it?
No, it is. Yeah, and I remember we both had this role. We never met each other, and we were in the west coast of Ireland making this film. And the first night we all got together at the hotel bar, I can't remember. And I was doing all my scenes with you, and I came up and said, "Hi, Ewan, I'm Charlie," and I said something like, "I hear you have a Moto Guzzi," and then that was kind of it, really. And funny enough, one of our last conversations we had just back there was about motorbikes. So, you know,
that's changed.
30-something years we've known each other. But from that moment of meeting, we then ended up doing track days together. We helped run a motorcycle race team together. We were along with Paul and Roy and a few others. We all kind of just knocked around together and did anything that was to do with motorcycles, really.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we met, anyway.
Yeah, we did a lot of things on or around bikes, either just riding into town and meeting each other, or doing track days, like you say. And there would be a little group of us. We'd ride up to Donington or Brands Hatch. We did the Indy circuit of Brands Hatch many times, and I always remember riding there as sort of normal people, and then riding back as absolute maniacs, because you'd spend all day going far too fast on a racetrack and then getting back on the road. It's quite dangerous when you're doing track days. You should really be careful when you're riding home.
But that obviously is a good place to say how you started with the idea of Long Way Around.
Yeah.
And how it came together in terms of the filming of it, anyway.
Well, I think it wouldn't. I wouldn't have happened had I not read Ted Simon wrote a book called Jupiter's Travels. And he wrote it in the mid-70s, I think, or at least he did the journey in early 72, 71, 72.
Something like that.
And he was a journalist, and he rode his motorbike. He didn't ride bikes. He decided he wanted to do a tour of the world, round the world trip, and write about it as for a column in the Sunday Times. And he decided that motorcycles were probably a good way to do it and to see the world, and he was right. He was right in that decision. And so he got a bike from Triumph. They gave him a bike, and off he went. And it took him 4 years. He he went down through Europe, down through Africa, across, up the Americas, and then from the West Coast he went across the Pacific to Australia, and then he worked his way back across, from Australia up the way across. And he wrote this beautiful book called Jupiter's Travels, which I'd read because I just found it in a bookshop, a picture of a guy in a Triumph on the cover somewhere in the desert, And I thought, that's interesting. And it sort of changed my life, because then I started dreaming of big trips, and Charlie and I just started dreaming about them together. And at first we were going to do sort of sports touring bikes to Spain or something.
To see our families down there.
Go down to
Meet
Spain.
our families in the south of Spain and have a holiday.
I think we talked about riding down with our wives on the back, and then they would fly home and we would sort of race home. And but then one day I went to a bookshop. Oh, there's my Maltese. I'll put that over there. There was a bookshop in Primrose Hill, and I went into this bookshop and I was with Clara. She was only wee, and we bought a world map. And my ex-wife Nev was brought up in China, and so I was thinking, I sound a bit like Trump there, China.
No, you sound nothing like him.
Okay,
I'll be an American and say you sound nothing like him.
Let's move swiftly on. So I was looking around, I was thinking, well, we could ride to China, but then what? What would you just ride back? And I was thinking, oh, look, there's a sort of straight line all the way around back to New York. And so I asked Charlie to come up to the house.
But I remember when you rang, you said, Charlie got this idea. He said, I think you should come over for some dinner. And we came over, and there was this world map on the table, and he sort of basically said what he thought. He goes, actually, there's a very good tip if you're trying to convince someone to go with you, or convince your partner that you should go on a long trip. Don't buy a big map, buy a small map. And then it really doesn't look very fast. They go, this seems right. Anyway,
a few weeks.
But I remember sitting there and thinking, God, that's a really good idea. And I remember we said to our wives, at the time, what do you think? And then, bizarrely, they both said yes quite quickly. I said, you do realise it's going to be 4.5 months? Yeah, that's good, that's fine.
So then I went off, I had to go away and do a job, and I said to Charlie, try and find, because we thought, let's film it, because to get the multi-entry visas in and out of Russia and stuff like that is massively complicated. And Charlie and I would never, ever be able to do something like that. So we thought, if we do a documentary, there'll be other people that will apply for those visas for us. So I said to Charlie, just find some producers and see if you can make some meetings for when I get back. So I went off to do my film.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Big Fish or I can't remember which one it was. Anyway, so you and me 2 months later, and he said, what have you done? I said, yeah, I've got a couple of people lined up. Put the phone down, and I'd done fuck all. And then luckily, I was painting and decorating this time because my career was doing really well. And then I'd done this guy's house up, and there was this kind of housewarming party, and the cabinets did fall off the kitchen later, but anyway, so we're having a drink and talking, and I started talking to Russ. And I was chatting away to Russ and saying, and he was saying that he made movies and produced the fastest movie in the world, and he did quite likes world records, and we got to, and he'd done this TV show about motorcycle manufacturers around the world, and so we just got chatting, and I think I'd already known that, and I had his card or something, and when I panicked, I rang Russ and said, can we get together? And that's how we kind of met Russ, right?
Later on, when we were trying to pitch to ITV, I remember we were down in Cannes, and the guy from ITV had given his card to Charlie, and we were trying to convince ITV to take this show. This is later on. And Charlie's gradually ripping his business card up in front of this other guy, and cleaning out the gaps in the table of all the dust and the thing. And I'm staring like, okay, we're not going to do that deal then. The guy's like staring at this rippage. I only had the card because I'd done this thing and I'd gone to Japan. You have to give the card like this. And so I'd landed from Japan that morning at 6:30. And And like I always say to my daughter who's out there somewhere, always go to a party, never you're going to meet. Through serendipity, we bumped into each other. And even at that point, I'd gone around the world filming all these different motorcycle manufacturers. And I was like, Husqvarna, no KTM. What about BMW, no KTM. CC, no KTM. So even then it was sort of lodged in his mind. But it was 2 months later that you phoned up and said, do you remember me? And I said, I do. I said, you're going around the world with a friend of yours. Well, the friend is actually Ewan McGregor. And I was like, oh, okay. They said, well, can we pop out? We're going to see 3 or 4 production companies. This is why I remember it.
Yeah.
And you came round with a cup of tea and toast in my flat in Battersea.
Yeah.
And you said, we'll phone you back in a couple of weeks because we're going to go and see other people. By the time I got back to see Em from school, you phoned up.
I forgot the best bit about it was so the first meeting that we met, I had to cancel because Ewan had gotten delayed on his film, and then I said we're going to cancel. And I think at that point Russ was thinking, I don't think he knows Ewan McGregor. So, and I said, can we do it in 3 weeks' time and stuff? And he goes, yeah, sure, whatever. And I think by this stage his interest had waned. Anyway, so we did turn up, and Russ, so we turned up in Clapham, and he's on the top floor of this 4-story building. And he tells him, this is how I remember it anyway, he told me, he looked out the window and he went, fucking hell, it is! and he had an production office in your thing, and everyone was sitting around, and he said, right, everybody look busy. And we came in and we had that thing. It always made me laugh.
We knew straight away because we had other meetings, and everybody, we were adamant, I don't know why at the time, we were just adamant that the trip is just it's probably from Ted's book, which is an honest account of a journey. I always felt we just have to do the journey and film it, and that's it, you know. And all of the other producers we met wanted to turn it into something else. Somebody wanted to make it into a sort of challenge show. So as we went around the world, there was different challenges, and whoever, you know, there'd be like points in the corner of the screen. Whoever got the least points, by the time we got to New York, would have their bike crushed in front of the other one. And we're like, no, it's just, and Russ did get it, and he, instead of telling us how he thought it should be, he asked us what we wanted it to be. And that's why by that afternoon, we knew that you were the right guy. But how did you meet David? How was David?
I know David, he can tell you a story in a minute. Obviously remember different ways. But I knew David from LA, and I just thought we should be talking to American broadcasters as much as British ones, and Dave was getting involved in TV, etc. So I was out spending a bit of a holiday with you in your place. I said, look, I'm doing this thing, do you want to get involved? So I think there was a very much of a seat of your pants approach to this.
And Charlie flew in, right?
But it did get the 4 of us together. That picture that you've got on screen is when we thought we'd all go down and meet you and filming Star Wars. To pressure
Hang on a second,
That's
sorry.
my 2 seconds.
Yeah, let's see your 2 seconds.
Russ said something about Ewan McGregor, and I said, well, he's filming Star Wars, let's get him on the phone. I was like, no, why don't we get some tickets and fly to Australia? Just being silly, we're in Los Angeles. I was like, we're halfway there, it's a lot. And Charlie, Russ, and I flew. You were literally filming the last scene of Star Wars, if you remember. You're on that team. It's so crazy, right? And
it's another story.
And you came running down. We went into your trailer, looking at motorcycle magazines, and that was it.
ATM.
We didn't. One little cute story was when Ewan's on these films with Charlie, you're not allowed to ride a motorcycle for the most part. He had signed an agreement. We didn't know about that, but Russ and I had organized 2. At that point, there were Tenorans. We had 2 Yamaha motorcycles waiting in your garage, and a little film crew. So we're like, let's do a mock-up, but that's the next little bit you should show.
You play?
Yeah.
So this is a little film from Australia.
Charlie and I were thinking about doing a trip, and then I got out this world map, and then I noticed that Alaska is so close to Russia, and how possible that round the world trip would be. Me and you finding out the last sheet of toilet paper somewhere in Kazakhstan.
We'll probably get lost on the way out of London. We'll find ourselves back in Marble Arch and thinking, hang on a minute, you know, I was in East Croydon, now I'm back in Marble Arch.
The highways are as nomadic as the people. They have 18 miles of tarmac road.
asking people about it. People didn't really get the idea of what we were trying to do because unbeknownst to us, we no one had really done a TV show like that where you're showing everything. The whole build up to everything, how we got it, with Russ and Dave and the production and getting it all together. And so people didn't really understand it. So partly we did this to make a sort of teaser to be able to show people, what we were doing. When we were down there, we thought, let's go to one of the Australian channels and ask.
Oh God, you're going to tell us.
If they might want to get in early, cheap, and they could do it. So we sat down with, I can't remember,
Channel 7
or 10 or something, and we pitched the story about these two guys going around the world, and we didn't know what was going on, and we were being really enthusiastic. And this guy said, he goes, and so we said, what do you think? And he goes, well, do you want to know what I really think? We go, yeah, I'd love to know. And he goes, well, I just think two wankers and motorcycles. So we thought, okay, maybe. But then
He's since come back and said he really liked the series, but it was pretty funny. Yeah, of course.
A year or so later for good money.
Yeah. But we did eventually get there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the start line, some of the things, speaking of the jitters, and you had these big bikes and packing them and getting it ready. Let's take a look at this and then we'll chat.
Good luck, mate, on this.
I promise to look after you. 2, 3.
Love you, darling.
Saying goodbye to your wife and children and then getting on your bike and leaving, I could see my wife and children crying out of the corner of my eye, and it just killed me, and consequently I dropped my bike.
It takes 8 people to lift that up because we had so much stuff on there. I mean, people ask what we've learned about travelling, and it's really, not a lot, but I mean, qualify that first of all, not a great deal. But not taking too much stuff is one of the main. You see videos on Instagram and stuff. People like we were there, just too much stuff. You don't really need very much.
No, you don't, and but and then I suppose because we had lots of people telling us, oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And we go, no.
We had 2 toolkits, 2 full tool. We were only ever going to be riding side by side, and we had 2 full toolkits. We had loads of stuff, and then when we were just about to leave, we spent the day before packing the bikes, and just before we left, people kept arriving into the workshop with new stuff, like here's a first aid kit that you have to carry, and we're like, where's that going to go? And then the carnet, the big one.
The carnet was it? Yeah. I mean, that was
Calm down, right? The carnet. The carnet was this massive tome of information that Charlie was given. I don't know why you trusted Charlie with it, not me. But anyway, Charlie had it, and
I'm the only one in the group that can't read.
That's true.
I still don't.
There is 2 pages out of it, just so we can get through each country without it, with impunity.
Not the point.
But here's the thing, right? It is dangerous. You drop in the bikes, and just to sort of share the love of it, here's a little clip because obviously you dropped the bike.
Here's a montage of me crashing, just to even things up.
So this is my way home.
You okay?
When I felt the bike go, I thought, I've got this, and then I didn't.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I saw the car, and I just thought I could pop up on it.
I could see fuel on the road, glass. I could hear the glass break when it broke.
Okay.
I just was on the ground suddenly. It's just such a horrible feeling, isn't it?
As I saw that crash happen, I'm thinking, oh my God, please don't let anything be broken, please, for his sake. So all these things were flashing in my mind.
I felt it on my hip. I think I might be a bit bruised there. It doesn't look like a raise. It just looked like a flat edge. Just annoying. Yeah. Oh, so embarrassing. It's always embarrassing falling off a bike, and it's the worst part is your pride, isn't it? I mean, well, I shouldn't say that because you've really hurt yourself in the past. But you see your bike on its side and the glass is smashed, and you're like, oh, just feel so embarrassed. There we are.
But the thing when you see someone, or especially when you your closest friends, your best friend sitting there, something that often your first thought is, you know, it's so easy to hurt yourself when you fall off a motorcycle, and your first panic is you know, is he going to be okay? Is he going to get stuck under the wheel? Is he going to, you know, there's so many things, and then, you know, I saw you jump up, and he goes, I'm okay. And partly I think he was thinking, I'm okay. You know, that shock and thinking I got away with it. But
Charlie,
then the relaxing of that is good.
No, but to shift gears a little bit, you know, all kidding aside, the three of us are so happy to see Charlie here because of what he's been through. And I tell you what, my daughter will have dinner with Charlie. I didn't say it to her. My daughter still, when she watches the series, is like, Charlie's okay, right? It's like, we just saw him for dinner last night, and that was a few months ago. But 2016, Charlie, you had a horrible accident.
Yeah.
Then again in 2019. I'm going to show some of this, and then will you talk about it?
How is Charlie, Ollie?
His lung is collapsed. His blood count isn't good.
They've moved him into intensive care. He's got a swelling around the brain, and they might have to drill into his skull to let the pressure out. He's got blood clots on the lung, and of course, if they travelled to the brain or the heart, it could lead to an embolism. I mean, he could die. It was a bit of a fright. Could have lost somebody, and it was a pretty horrendous accident. I think then I certainly reflected upon it and thought, you've got to look after the relationships in your life that are important. You've got to put energy into them to keep them alive, you know, and if you don't, you're losing something that's very important.
I think 2016 was a bad crash. I was launching, I was with Triumph, and we were launching the new Tiger 1200, and I left the hotel, and anyway, I had the world's press were following me, and it was just a little embarrassing. And I got clipped by a car, and then I went off, and then I just instantly hit a wall, so I just smashed my legs up, and the bone came out of this leg, and there was rib complications. It was, I think, 26 or 27 operations to sort of walk again properly, and I broke my hand as well, and that was 2016. But then 2018 was this crash, but it was much worse. I don't remember. I woke up in intensive care, and I remember vague voices, but I'd fallen over and snapped my forearm and bent it all the way backwards, and the bones fell out. And I'd had a big head injury. I had broken my collarbone. Actually, this was the third time I'd broken all the bones in my left ribs and collapsed lung for the third time, and had all of that. But what I hadn't realised when I was walking around on that video, I had a broken pelvis which they'd missed. And when I finally got back to the UK, they'd x-rayed me again, and they said, "Oh, your pelvis is broken." And they said, "You've been walking around." I said, "Yeah, I've been walking." He said, "Well, if you just walked slightly wrong, your leg would have gone through your body, and you would have probably died." But the interesting thing on that one was when so I was being followed by the support vehicle just early in the morning in South Africa and up in the up near Lesotho, and they came across me quite quickly, luckily. But I'd stopped breathing, and they had to take my helmet off, and the guy who found me was shaking me to try and get me to breathe again, and I started to breathe again. And then apparently there was a 4-hour. They strapped me to a door, and they stuck me in the back of a pickup, and it took 5 hours to get to tarmac, and then another 5 hours to get to a hospital. So I got lucky, but luckily on the tours that I do, we always have a paramedic, and we always have stuff. So, but I remember. But I do remember we were in negotiations for a long way up at the time, and they kept saying, "We would love to see you and Charlie together." And they go, "Well, he's filming." But we had reality hours.
We had to string them along.
Long bit.
Charlie was in hospital, and we were still selling Long Way Up. Yeah, they're ready to go, it's all good to go. And it's like, how is he? Oh no, he has to be still, out for the count. Not quite in a coma, but you were out for the count, weren't you? And so we thought, we've got to keep pitching the story. We've got to keep pitching the idea. And then fortunately, you bounced back.
No,
I mean,
it's
you-
fine.
you-
I think it was 32 operations in total. And saying, I remember, I think that's another, I remember you said that you were just about to get on your bike or something to go to work.
Oh yeah, when I heard, I was about to get on my bike and to go to work in LA, and your friend Ben called me to tell me about the crash, and I was standing in my garage, and I thought not to go on my bike, and then I thought about you, and I thought, no, I'm going to go on my bike, and I did get on my motorbike and go, because I thought you would have liked that. But we knew that Charlie was probably going to be okay when he sent us a picture of his testicles and how bruised they were. It was quite an interesting photograph. I don't know how you took it, but you think that was bruised on his back? You should have. Oh my goodness! And I think we all knew then that Charlie's sort of going to be okay.
Charlie.
Oh, that was Charlie.
Lost everything sense of humor.
Purple, black, and blue.
Black, was everything.
Oh, mate, dear.
Talk more about
But that made like when we were travelling doing Long Way Up, that made whenever because Long Way Up wasn't as dramatic. The off-road riding wasn't nearly as tough as it had been in like northern Kenya or Sudan or a handful of the countries we went through where the riding was really, really tough. Sudan was the hardest for me, I think, with sand and deep sand and heat. And I had a fall in Sudan where I hit the ground and I felt all the bones in my body vibrating, and that was the only time in any of these trips that I thought, why am I doing this? It was just a hard fall. But there wasn't any riding like that in Long Way Up, except for where was it? The desert. Bolivia. I thought you were saying Libya.
Bolivia.
Sorry, I was near the bean. It was like Libya's not Long Way Up. Bolivia, and then and then following Charlie on that terrain shortly after this was just scary, because you just think your legs were still so fragile, and if there had been some off then, it could have been really bad,
You've been very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Really.
But you remember
Touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood. But I remember they talked about Bolivia, and it's corrugation, and those electric bikes were quite heavy, weren't they? And there's like 20 lanes all beside each other, and all corrugation, and you're riding along, there's one bit of corrugation like that, and you're looking way over there, and you're thinking, that looks much nicer. And then you would sort of bobble right over to that side over there, thinking this is bad, and then it's just as bad there, and then you're back over there. That was
I know. And that's when that's always when Charlie and I sort of start being silly, we start, that's when we dreamt up Long Way Home, was during that, going from one rut to the other. It was really like taking a chance to get over there, and we start, geeing each other along, I guess, by telling silly stories, whatever it was, and dreaming up doing another trip on old bikes,
You have that, but I tell you, the motorcycle component is a big part of it. It's always been, always will be, but it is meeting these incredible people and these wonderful folks in various communities. Just this clip alone, will inspire some chat for sure.
Coming ladies, I've asked us for a nice cup of tea. Incredible tea. Just ginger, they boiled it up so beautifully.
These, I think, as our host, our chief.
It's good.
That's what we like to visit. Thank you.
Again, we're meeting people who have absolutely nothing, who are willing to share what they have with us, who sit in their homes
and make us tea and give us food and are proud of their land and it's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Ethiopia was amazing. Amazing. It was so lovely. When you watch these, people's faces, and we remember we've met so many amazing people, and that's what's always, you always come back from these trips filled up with the kindness of humanity, the kindness of human beings. We're always meeting people that are lovely, and I don't know if it's, in Mongolia or where you're on, whether it's because you're on a bike or you're vulnerable to the environment, I don't know what it is, but people are so, look, these people had next to nothing, and they wanted us to come in, they shared what they had with us, it was amazing. In Mongolia with those horsemen, when we were cooking our camp food, that we'd been carrying for months on the back of our bikes, and these guys came up on horses, and we gave them some of our food, and they were like, oh, I didn't like it at all, but they said, come, they pointed to this ger like a mile away, and they said, you should come, and with no language at all, we rode over there, and we had the most amazing experience in there.
It's all the way through, and I remember when we were going through Sudan, and it was really, really hot, and we pulled into this place, and we were just completely overwhelmed, overheated, and fatigued, and this lovely lady with her two little children, or three little children were sitting. She said, come, she beckoned us into the shade, and we sat in the shade, and she gave us big pieces of watermelon, and we ate this watermelon, and then we both sort of lay down and just went to sleep, and then got up and went off again, and that was just shortly after getting into Ethiopia, and it's bizarre because the whole of Sudan going along the Nile was desert, and then when we arrived at the border of Ethiopia, we crossed over the border, and everything changes when you go through a border. The colour of the tarmac, the signposts, the architecture, the way people dress, and suddenly there was forest.
Yeah.
And it turned into this completely.
We climbed up. We just started climbing up and up and up.
And how just that line on the map, when you actually go over it in reality, everything changes.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I love so much about doing what we do.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time before we set off on these expeditions, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes about the filming and preparation, but we take safety very seriously, and we do survival training courses, and on these survival training courses there's the medical bit, but then there's the bit where the people say this is what you should do at a border. If you're crossing a border very late, you'll find that there's people looking out for you, and then later, a mile down the track, someone's going to rob you. And we got stuck on the Slovakian-Ukrainian border on the long way round, didn't we? And because we didn't have the original V5s, they weren't going to let us in. And they said, but you've got to go around Belarus. They said, well, we can't do that. We're on a schedule, and we need to get through Ukraine to get to Kazakhstan. And then we made a telephone call. Dave and I met a guy in Moscow that pulled a few strings. And so they let us through the passport control. But then we got to the customs bit, and they took everything out of all the cars. Do you remember?
That's right, yeah.
They made us take everything out just to prove a point. And we didn't leave that border till about 2-3 o'clock.
14 hours.
In the morning. And we bumped into this crazy Ukrainian guy who said, follow me, come and stay at my house. And he took us into the woods. Do you remember that? Into this crazy castle, and there's all these guys with Kalashnikovs. And we did exactly what we had been told not to do. But in the spirit of what you were saying...
But then later on in Ukraine, we were riding along, and they'd set up these little police speed traps in the middle of nowhere, really, just to get... They're just making money, the policemen. So we're riding down a country road, and suddenly there's a 30-mile-an-hour sign behind a bush that you don't see. And anyway, a policeman stops us, and he's giving us a hard time for we're speeding, apparently. And so we managed to talk our way out of the speeding, but he said, where are you, this is all in broken English and sign language, whatever, where are you sleeping? And we looked on the map, and we showed him the next town, and we were going to sleep in a hotel. And he said, like this. And we were like, what? And he was like, no. And then we realised he was saying, you'll get bed bugs. There'll be don't stay in that hotel in that town. He said, come back here at 6 o'clock tonight. So we just did. We didn't question it. So we can't use a policeman after all. So we came back. And he at 6 o'clock, and we went, all right, and he jumped in his car, and he said, follow me, and we did. We followed him all the way into this town. Through this town, the streets are getting narrower and narrower, and it was a small, poor town. It wasn't like a city or anything. And we get just narrower and narrower until he pulls up outside this appliance shop, like there's microwaves and dishwashers and stuff. And it looks like a bunch of extras from Goodfellas outside, literally pinstripe suits and leather jackets and
bulges.
They're all, yeah. And we're just sitting there on our bikes going, what? And he disappears. And this guy, it's literally like, I'm describing it like a movie because this is what it was like. The crowd sort of slightly parted, and this man walks through the crowd with a black moustache. He looked like De Niro in the 70s, you know, handsome man. And he just went like this, follow me, and jumped in a BMW. And the next thing, so we're just following him now. Okay, and we get to this, through this sort of, I don't think it's fair to say slum, but it was a very poor part of town, and we turned around the corner, and there was a big house, like where there shouldn't have been a big house, really, and metal gates. And at the metal gates were these more extras from Goodfellas in their leather jackets. And the gates opened and we rode in behind him, you know. Amazing. And we went into, and he got out of the car. We got off the bikes, and he went, welcome, welcome. He kept saying, well, this house is your house. And we were like, okay, now, okay. And we were totally on our own because Claudio, who had lied about his motorcycle license, had to go back to Britain to sit his bike test. And we were on our own, just me and Charlie, filming each other with our handy cams. And as we sat there with this man called Igor, he told us the story of his life, and he'd been in the Russian Navy. And we were in Ukraine, but he'd been in the Russian Navy during the Cold War, and he was in submarines. And he was asking about our travels, and we were telling him all about it. He was just sort of shaking his head going, he didn't like travel. He said, I'd like to stay here. I did enough traveling in the Navy. And as he was talking, these guys would arrive, and this big guy came in with like hands, like two of my hands, you know, a huge big guy. And he was behind me, and he took his jacket off, and Charlie leaned over and went, he's taking off his gun. And I said, what? And he said, I asked him to say it again, you know. He said, he's taking off his gun. And I turned around, and he was taking off his sidearm in a shoulder holster here. And then more guys arrived. Some guys looked like Al Capone, you know, in like pinstripe suits and hats and stuff.
Broken noses.
We've got this little clip of Igor.
Well,
Hang on,
Igor.
okay. Hang on.
We followed this guy to this big house. All the other houses in this town we passed were just small houses. This guy had a big grand mansion.
Leave. So what you doing here?
Well, it's a bit embarrassing to have to take our boots off. Our host, your name is?
Igor.
He phoned for a friend of his to come and translate.
How many children you got?
I have 2.
More men arrived, and then more men arrived, and suddenly there was a bit of a party going on.
Welcome!
Сердце горит спят на непробудным сном.
There's Brian now not knowing what the fuck is going on.
I have one good thing.
But this is the confusing thing, because they were really lovely to us, you know. They were so kind to us. His wife, she just out of nowhere produced this huge feat. They didn't know who we were. I think we were just visitors to them, and they wanted to look after us. But while we were sitting in there, we were chatting away. He kept disappearing to make phone calls, Igor, to sort out some business here and there. And then we were just sitting there, and suddenly there was a gunshot from outside, and I Charlie had gone out with the guy with the big hands to show him the motorbike. And I thought he'd shot Charlie. I thought, fucking hell, Charlie's might be, and I ran out. And he was so drunk, the guy, by this point, because we were drinking vodka, he just was shooting his gun off up in the air, wasn't he? Charlie was standing there.
We'd gone outside because you could have a Kalashnikov inside, but you weren't allowed to smoke inside. We'd gone for a sniff there, and you know we're like massive smokers at that time. And he started shooting. He was shooting beside me, but the cartridges. They were exploding the cartridges, were hitting the smoke. And I was sitting there smoking, the urine comes out and goes, I thought they'd killed you. And I'm thinking, what the fuck are we doing? I've never been so glad to get out of a place.
The next morning they took us down a mine.
Oh yeah.
What were we doing? We're talking about safety lessons.
We didn't listen.
We went down a mine with these people, he gave us these photographs of himself in the Navy when he was in the submarines, like in his uniform, and he gave them to us in his kitchen, and then we went off and went down the mine, and when we came out of the mine, we were so relieved to still be coming out of the mine that we go on the bikes and we wave them goodbye and we head out of town, and as we get to the outskirts of town, I looked at mine just as we got out of there, and it felt. They'd been very kind to us, but it was scary. They were scary people, and we were relieved to get away. And I looked in my wing mirror, and one of his guys was following us in his car. And I said to Charlie, "His guy's following us." I looked in my mirror, Charlie looked in his mirror, and he starts flashing his lights, and we're like, "Oh no, what's going on?" So we pull over. Now I'm thinking, this is where it happens. This is where they pop us off in the outskirts of town. It's also perfect. And he ran up to us, and as he came up, he went like this. And he pulled out the photographs of Igor that we'd left on the kitchen table. He wanted you to have these, and we're like, okay, thanks so much.
There were lots of these kind of things that we were sort of led up the garden path with, and I think the Colombian boat affair was something we needed to get around the Darien Gap because there's no roads to the Darien Gap, and so we thought we'd take this really nice pleasure cruise of thing. They sent us photos of this really nice boat, and we got there, and you saw the really nice boat, and then they took us to this green boat. I think it was green, or whatever it was. I can't remember.
Maybe it used to be. It wasn't green anymore.
Oh my God, they lent us up the garden path.
Yeah.
I mean, there was so many different things. It was
It'd be really interesting. It could be an interesting affair.
This is a wreck.
This can't be our boat. This doesn't even look seaworthy.
This is not the boat you're looking for. Move along. Move along.
This is our boat, is it? What's that up there? That green one, surely.
They're already preparing the food for us now.
Yeah. This is it, is it?
This is our boat.
So there's no going back now.
Oh my God! Oh no! He's pushing my bike alone. It's very, very heavy. I think they're used to doing this with scooters. I don't know that they're used to doing this with Harley Davidsons. It doesn't look too bad there. We all chose rooms, and I remember going round, and Charlie, we'd set sail by this time. And Charlie, I opened Charlie's door, and he was you were right next to the chimney. The exhaust pipe. And they sat there, and he was like, it looked like he was in a little prison cell, just like sweating. And he couldn't hit the noise. Like, unbelievable. But we loved that boat. I loved it in the end.
They had misled us a bit. They'd sent us pictures of a nice boat, and we'd said yes to this boat, and it was going to be an amazing adventure to try and get around the Darien Gap. And we turned up, there was guys there with guns, do you remember? And the tide was going down, and they said, well, this is the boat, take it or leave it. And if you don't take it and the tide goes out, you're stuck. So we had to get on it, and in the spirit of serendipity, it was one of the best experiences of the trip. You know, sometimes
And they were
things
super
go wrong.
lovely,
I don't know
those
if you've had
people.
that experience yourself. Sometimes things go wrong on holidays or adventures or trips, and it turns out to be a wonderful experience.
But they were incredible. Remember the food they cooked for us and everything? They were super
Exactly.
good.
And talking about food and knowing that we're getting close to the a break, but we do want to show you one other clip that we think is quite funny about Mongolia. We've gone to Mongolia, and I think we were looking. I was looking over, and they were doing something funny to this horse. I was thinking, what are they doing? It looked like they were whipping it or something. They weren't. But they invited us in for tea. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you know, we were told that you can't show the soles of your feet. It's quite interesting when you travel, learning all the different cultural things that go on.
Yeah.
But shall I play the video and then we can have a little chat about it afterwards?
Yeah.
But you remember what I'm talking about?
I mean, as we were walking across, it's really beautiful, Mongolia, and it was like a dream when you think back to it, wasn't it? Really, the whole place was so beautiful. And as we walked across, it was true. There was an animal. They had yaks, sheep. They have cows,
Horses.
yeah. And there seemed to be two guys, sort of on this animal was lying on its side, and it didn't look like it was very happy.
No.
And we found out why when we went in.
So should we play a little clip before the break?
We're camping tonight with the support team, and some locals have invited us into their gur for tea.
Would you like to eat nuts?
Nuts?
Balls, cow balls, sheep balls, and goat balls, and there were 200.
Go on, have a balls now. Have a look at it in the and they all come off today, so they're all fresh, right?
I've only got a wee one.
Go, baby. It's very good. What do you mean? No.
Go on, Russell.
Go on, Russ. Go on, Russell.
One's like kindling. You bit in it, it popped and went down your throat. Just gagged, spat it out. But listen, in the spirit of trying to sort of stay on schedule, that's the end of the first half. So we hope that you've enjoyed it.
Serving bowls at the back.
They're serving bowls at the foyer.
Big,
But
small.
what we wanted to do just before the end of this is get a picture of us here with everybody in the background, if that's all right. So I think they're going to put the house lights up, and then we have a great photographer who's going to come up on the stage, and then we'll rejoin in about 20 minutes after we take this picture. But when we do the picture, we're very happy if you want to put your hands up in the air and
Look
give
at
them
them,
a
see
cheer.
everybody. Hello.
So here we go. Face that way, you ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. And one
All right,
more.
guys. Have a lovely break.
Thank you very much.
Oh, see you after.
Thank you very much.
Oh god, yeah, that was amazing. That bobsleigh bit.
you? Oh, I see.
Did you all have a glass of personality? Little drink. Okay.
Were there any festivals out there?
Are there any testicles out there? Is that what you said? I would say a few. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Act 2 of Long Way Chat. We thought we'd kick off with... Yeah, thank you very much. We had a lovely time. We were so nervous before we came out the first half because there were so many of you, and luckily it's quite dark. It's difficult to see you all, which is reassuring. But we had such a great time in the first half, and now we're looking forward to the second half. We've never done this before. We did a practice run. There's a lovely place called the Bike Shed in London, and there's one in LA. It's fantastic. There's a nice restaurant, cafe, motorbike vibes, and we did a little practice run there, but for 100, 200 people, less. Not this. So we're having a great time with you all. We thought we'd start off the second act by talking about what, in many ways, was probably one of the sort of highlights of all of the trips when people come up to talk to us. For you, the viewers, and also for us doing the trip, was the Road of Bones, which was the last section of Russia in a long way round in far eastern Russia, and it was a road that was built by Stalin's prisoners of war, and it's a very sad road, really, because it's called the Road of Bones because the prisoners built the road, and it was horrible conditions there, freezing cold, and when people would pass away from the conditions there, they would just be buried in the road. So there's something eerie and spooky, but it's really a beautiful road too, because it is the only road for thousands of miles. It's quite an amazing feeling, and for me, and I don't know for the rest of you guys, but there was something amazing about riding and then just deciding we'd ridden enough for the day at maybe 5, 6 o'clock in the evening and stopping, and the only place you could put your tent up was there on the road, because all of the sides of the roads was marshland, because you could only really ride it in the summertime. So it was an amazing, and then it would stay light because we were so far north. You just find yourself telling stories and kicking stones around, and I thought, God, this is what we did it for. This feeling of just being a boy again and like not having anything else to do but just stand around, and you look at your watch and it'd be 3 in the morning or something. We go, oh God, we have to get to sleep. So, but getting there was obviously quite amazing, but doing it was extraordinary. And we became part of the road, didn't we? In that we had to dig bits of it out because there was the other thing was in our workshop, all during the prep of the long way round, was this photograph of a bridge there on the Road of the Bones that was just a destroyed bridge, you know. But that there was a lovely guy who did a ride. His ride was called the Millennial Ride, and we looked at his stills from the Road of Bones for months in advance, and then we found ourselves standing there looking at the very bridge, and it was an amazing experience.
We didn't realise the bridge was there, was it? And because we got to a certain point and we were camping. Do you remember? And we were camping, and then you said, "Oh, Charlie, come here, come and have a look. You've got to see this bridge." And we walked down, and he said, "Look,
there's the bridge.
There's the bridge."
Yeah.
And it was quite extraordinary, wasn't it? And then that couple got in that car, reversed back, and went off over the side and rolled the car over.
That's right.
And we had to break the glass and drag them out of the car.
It was a bit like the Wild West over there, wasn't it?
And that was the beginning of the adventure of Road of Bones.
Yeah.
You know? And that's where we all stuck together, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Should we look at some of it?
Unbelievable. The roads just deteriorated. We're riding on mud, gravel.
I was so scared. Look at me, I'm trembling right now. I mean, it's like going through the rapids. You know, of course, that thing doesn't have any steering to begin with anyhow. One down, we got 3 to go.
Andiamo, let's go! Magadan all the way!
Vladimir!
We're all still alive. Something to be said for that.
The road above us has been more incredible than we could have imagined.
And that was David, that little Ferg. What was that like in that day?
Scary.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it now, I still don't. I guess I was that the only non-Brit? Is that why you guys sent me through the rivers or something? You know what you could do? You'd be really good at, that sort of thing.
There's a lot more of you guys than there is of us.
You drove
It
that.
was
but
remarkable.
you also drove it through river as well, like through water,
Yeah.
deep water. You were brave doing all that stuff. Amazing.
But I remember
Or silly.
in the back of our camera cars, we each had our own box. You could put anything you want in your own box, and for weeks really we've been surviving off those boil in the bag meals, which really upset your stomach a bit.
Make you
had
go
quite a lot.
orange as well.
They go orange and blue. And I was like, just standing with you, I don't know if you remember this, and I was like, God, I'd really like a cup of tea and some cheddar cheese and some chocolate. You know what I mean? And because you're in a place about the size of France, and there's nothing in it apart from bears and mosquitoes, and it was a real great adventure. It was a lovely, but I was sort of craving sort of British staple diet, and I was ferreting through my box, and I just thought, I wonder what Charlie's got in his box. And I went into my box, and I went into Charlie's box, and in there was a hunk of cheese that my mum had put in before we left at Clackett main services on the M25, and it was like this big cheddar cheese and a big bag of Toblerones. Do you remember that? And we were on the back of that green Kabat's truck, breaking chunks of cheddar cheese off and eating chocolate, and it was there. And for some reason, because it had been in Charlie's box, I'd never looked in it, so it survived. It survived. It survived by 2 months without being eaten.
No, but it wasn't. Then Russ, of course, accused me of
Hoarding
stealing his cheese. I didn't even know it was there. And he's going, yeah, right, sure, right.
I thought he put it in his box.
On purpose, to hide it from you guys. But I remember I hurt my shoulder quite badly because we came up to this river that we couldn't go through, and so Ewan parked his bike, I parked my bike, and then of course Claudio parked his bike, and the whole of Siberia to park in, and he parked right beside my bike. I mean, literally within inches. And so I go to move my bike, or I can't remember how it went. Anyway, because Claudio's was in the way, mine just went right over, and I pulled some muscle, but it was quite fortuitous at that time having that injury, because we had to get the bikes on the back of the trucks anyway. So but I remember with you two, with you and I on the back of the truck, and then you guys were in the camera cars, and we'd use the big truck on some of the bigger rivers. So the big truck would go upriver, and then the smaller cars would go and drive beside the big truck to stop the flow, so reduce the flow so that the little cars wouldn't get washed away. So it was quite, as you were saying earlier, it really was the sort of stuff of dreams. And our whole thing about the long way round was to get to Magadan, wasn't it? We'd almost forgotten about the whole of North America that we had to get across.
It was an amazing experience getting to Magadan. I remember the night before we got into Magadan, we camped by the side of the road, and we woke up in the morning and the tents were covered in snow. Do you remember? It was freezing. And you look at this stuff, and I don't really remember, like we were going through the rivers, and we'd be up to our waists in water, pushing the bikes through before we got after we got them off the truck. But I don't really remember it being cold as such or anything. Just got on with it.
I think the big thing was you had said it at the time, and we were lucky to capture it on camera. You had said it's very rare in life, certainly in modern life, and that was 20 years ago, less so now, where you don't have an option. It was like we just had to go straight. It wasn't like, okay, let's go left, let's go right, let's find an arrow. There's no boat, there's no train.
And when we got through, there was a bit of a celebration, and the drivers that we had got all the vodka out, and this guy was drinking these bottles of vodka, and then throwing them up in the air with his shotgun. He was trying to shoot these empty bottles of vodka, and he kept missing all of them. And then he said, I bet you I would shoot your hat. And I had that British Airways hat. So I said, well, I'm going to win this bet. And I threw it up in the air like that. And he waited till it fell on the floor and he went, BAM!
I tell you nothing, when I was watching that clip, it reminded me of another story when we were in Mongolia about river crossings, and we come to the first sort of proper big river crossing, and the road went in and down to this pretty big river, and there was this old broken bridge here, and it was completely finished, and all the cars were going through. We watched a couple of cars go through, and it was really quite deep, and we were sitting there going, oh God, we're going to have to go through. And we did the rock, paper, scissors as to who was going to walk through the river to find the shallowest bit in this one. I remember I lost, and so I took my bottles off, and I was standing halfway across the river talking to Ewan about which direction we should go in and stuff like that. And as we were talking about that, these two guys on this little Russian bike sort of came up beside where you go down into the river, and they stopped and looked at us, and they were having a conversation. And then they just carried on and went over the bridge and crossed the bridge and carried on. And I can imagine I was standing there going, oh, for fuck's sake. I'm just imagining what they were saying to each other. You know, look at those two fucking tourists. No idea what they're doing.
I'm talking about the dangers of the bikes and the motorcycles of it all. Talking about the animals that we come across, and again, you know, we do take advice, as we've said earlier, and we're very conscious of the small stuff like ticks and mosquitoes and parasites and all this stuff. But this next clip, Ewan, is about what happened when you had that elephant coming at you.
Before you see this, there was a night before this in Tanzania somewhere, because this was in
Long way down.
Yeah, long way down. Tanzania.
Yep.
Yeah, so we were in Tanzania and we were camping. That was a long way down, right? And
just double checking.
Our geography's never been our strong point. And there was a, you know, you're traveling with each other all the time, you know, day in, day out. And so I put my tent way over on this side of this road, and you guys were all on the other side. And I wasn't in a bad mood really. I just thought I just need a bit of space on my own. So I went over there. And at night, I woke up. I remember I was wearing, I don't know why, I was wearing a t-shirt and nothing else, and I was in my sleeping bag, and I woke up to this noise. I could hear something chewing really close to the tent, and I knew immediately it was an elephant. And I thought, okay, so I got out of my sleeping bag, and I slowly undid my tent, and you guys were all out going, Ewan, there's an elephant over there. I was like, I know! Just in a t-shirt, and a hint, and we never saw it, but in the morning we found the footprints, and it was 10, 15 feet away from the tent, but still it was close enough. And I thought that's an amazing experience, isn't it, to wake at night because of the noise of an elephant chewing leaves. But this was another one. This was
their tent at any moment, but
I should have learned my lesson, but obviously I didn't.
When you got cornered by one on your own.
Quite amazing privilege to be so close to these amazing animals. They're very short-sighted elephants. They're very good hearing, obviously, because they've got such big ears, and also very good smell, sense of smell. Which you can tell because they've got very big noses. So I think I've been an edge away now before. I chanced my luck too much. As I started to back off, he started to walk towards me, and his ears came up, and he seemed to get bigger. And then I stopped behind a tree, what was I doing? Hiding behind a tree from an elephant. He made the most God almighty trumpeting noise. And it's primeval fear I felt. Fear from a very ancient place in my psyche. And I ran up to my room. It was terrifying.
What an idiot, though. I mean, just what an idiot. Anyone that knew anything about elephants would look at me and go, what are you doing? You're just asking for
Because
it.
they've got terrible eyesight, don't they? You were probably upwind of it or something.
You could tell, when you look back at it, you can see he's pretending to eat. He's doing this, but he's not picking up any grass. He was just pretending while he sussed me out. And then he realised he didn't like me very much. And got rid of me. It was close enough.
The line of science is they have very good hearing because they got those big ears. Right? Very good hearing. Oh. So
Anyway, carrying on.
well, one little bit of, long way history was the decision in Long Way Up to take electric motorcycles.
Yeah.
And it's fun for people because we tell people when we meet them individually because a lot of people want to know. But can you talk a little bit about that decision and what the experience was like and sort of what people don't know about Long Way Up in that regard?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, be honest about it.
I would say it was Russ's fault. I mean, it was Russ's suggestion. And Russ mentioned it because we are mindful of the environment and we're also like to be part of what's new about energy and green energy, and we all believe in that stuff. We do. So the discussion was raised about taking electric bikes, and at first we were like, let's totally look into it. It's quite exciting. At that time there was a huge wave of new electric mobility with scooters, with like these one-wheel things, with bicycles, and with electric motorcycles. There was more every time you looked at your phone. There was another electric motorcycle company startup, and so we thought that it was worth exploring, and it was absolutely fun to do.
It was.
And I think there came a point we spoke to a lot of people, and a lot of people kept saying. There was there's a guy called Michael who runs EV West, and they manufacture and sell parts to convert your vehicle to electric cars mainly. But he was saying 70-mile range is all you can expect.
Yeah,
and
we won't be able to do it, basically, is what he was saying, wasn't he?
But he said, but great, like why don't you try and do something that people can't do? And we're like, well, that's not really the point. But we did do it, and we tried. And it was an amazing experience. It is lovely to ride those bikes. I really liked my bike. I think the challenge was, of course, charging it in cold temperatures. We learned a lot about it as we did it. The speed you had to go at to get the most miles meant that we did a lot of that trip quite slowly, which is really why we shortchanged Mexico. I think there was a sort of unfortunate thing that happened in the edit at the end of A Long Way Up, if we're going to be absolutely honest, is that we wanted to get back home for Christmas, and so we were running out of time, and we promised our families that we'd be back for Christmas, which is why we came up with the idea for the bus, to put the bikes into the bus, 2 generators on the roof. We could charge the bikes as we go, drive through the night, and then we ride them during the day, and it was purely to get home for Christmas. And in the edit, we were a little bit pressured to not tell that story, which was about the timing, but it came across a bit like we were scared of Mexico, or that Mexico was a scary place. And I really resented that because that wasn't the truth. And I've got lots of people that I know from Mexico who were a little like, that wasn't fair. And you're like, yeah, that's true.
And they were wonderful to us.
And they were amazing. And also
Mexico.
traveling in Mexico was absolutely fantastic.
But we have to, those. But those first 3 or 4 days coming out of Guatemala and coming out of Central America, Medellin in Colombia, that whole Central America thing just lit my mind up. And I can't speak for you guys, Nicaragua, and all those places were extraordinary. But those first 4 or 5 days going up to Oaxaca was just one of the best meals that we ever had. We went into this small town where no tourists go or anything. We found this little hotel. Was at first didn't look that nice, but they were really friendly. Air conditioning, nice room. And we went out and we said, where is there a nice place to go to eat? And then he said, yeah. He said, you've got to go back down south towards that petrol station. In the petrol station, the car park is this shack. that's the best food in this place. So it was okay. And then he drove us there. We went and we had that meal, and it was spectacular. And just some of those roads, and I loved it. I'm desperate to go back.
But I
want to jump in though.
Can I just about the electric bikes? There's very few of us that would outrun the range of a motorcycle in a day. There's, obviously if you're going on a very long trip or if you're riding more than 150 miles in a day, it becomes an issue for charging. But that's not such a problem here in Great Britain or it is if you're in Patagonia. But so for a daily commute, if you're riding a bike to work and back, electric bikes are amazing because they're so pleasant to ride, there's no stress from the engine, there's no vibrations. People talk about the noise. Well, when you're riding at speeds, you're just hearing the wind anyway, really. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. And I think electric bikes are amazing for daily riding, and for long distance stuff, maybe not quite yet.
But it is worth saying one quick one, because of the way it came about. Now, obviously, we did Long Way Around, it was like 2004, and then Long Way Up. Long Way Down happened 3 years later. We had a big gap, and in truth, Russ and I had many conversations with Apple prior to this. So yes, Russ did at one point one of these creative conversations he had. When we were asked, how would you like to do it differently? We're like, well, we kind of want to do it the same because that's why you're talking to us. And well, how can we do it a little differently? Russ said, there's electric motorcycles. And it was literally like that long conversation in a 1 hour long meeting. And then we didn't hear from them for the longest time. And then we got a note. It was sort of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like you got the golden tickets. Like, please come to Cupertino. You're going to be one of the series that launches Apple TV Plus. And I would say this about you 25 years ago, the guy, he's an amazing actor, but he's a horrible liar. And you sit there, Tim Cook came up to us at one point, and he's like, I'm so excited about your trip, and I hear you guys are going on electric motorcycles. That's going to be awesome. And you had looked at us like, electric motorcycles? We're going on electric motorcycles? When did you agree with that? Do you remember that face?
Yeah.
But it was an incredible experience.
That particular party, Charlie, you've got to tell your Reese Witherspoon story and Jennifer Aniston.
Hang on, which Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston story?
Yeah, which one?
He already talked about Kylie Minogue in the last one.
But it was interesting place going to.
Just before we get off the electric, sorry, but tell us about the Rivians, David, because those were prototypes.
No, that's again, it's also
that guy invested a lot in that shop.
And we're super blessed and lucky, right? What's that? No. You guys don't know secrets. We're super blessed and lucky, and every one of these guys has been so supportive of us, all of them, and Harley Davidson in particular, in this case, because they built those prototypes. But there wasn't really a charging network, as you can imagine, in 2019 through South and Central America. It still isn't, bro. But when we met, we wrote a note to Rivian, because we're not going to follow 2 electric motorcycles with 2 diesel film cars. So I found out about this company called Rivian. Nobody knew who they were. And literally wrote a note and said, we're doing this thing. And we're super lucky. We met somebody who got the series. Chief marketing officer was like, I own a motorcycle because of you guys. When can you come to Detroit? And they were super lovely. This fellow, RJ, who's the CEO, at that point nobody knew he was like, stop talking, we got it, we'll do the thing, we'll give you 2 trucks. And somebody said, well, RJ, where are they going to charge it? He said, we'll install an electric highway for people who want to do these trips in the future. So he was remarkable. He did that. They never asked for thank yous. They never asked to be in the series. And they did. They built an electric highway they put chargers, right? Every 200 miles.
But it did make me laugh because it was good.
It was remarkable.
It was great for the Rivians. They could charge. But we didn't have any clue about how to charge anything. There were no fast chargers in the whole of South America, Central America, Mexico. It was only until we got to America that we could sort of do fast charges. And we didn't have the right cables to be able to charge the bikes, and then we finally did get the right cables just by pure accident, like 2 days before.
Oh, here we go.
But the whole charging system, you and I could plug our bikes into them, but it was just a trickle charge.
It was slow, yeah. It was fast for the cars, but not for us.
Look at this.
Here we go.
Let's plug it in on this other circuit.
they both came up, so they both turned on.
Look, it's already melting.
Warming up, it's extraordinary.
Come on, mine's 28%. If it works, then we can charge them from the house while the house is asleep, if you like, all night, and then by the time we take them out in the morning, it might be a bit more juicy.
So we know that it is an extreme cold problem. So then when they're very, very cold, they won't take a charge.
And that if you pull everything off one circuit, that's why he uses 2 cables in 2 different circuits. The thing is, how do you know? How do you test the circuit? How do you test it?
Ideally, what you could do is you probably do it here, and then the other one would be plugging in the kitchen. You know, maybe. Oh, the power's just gone.
Yeah, right. That was the next day I didn't make it to the boat, do you remember?
Yeah.
I was 2 miles and I held on to... When I was in New York once, a long, long time ago, I was riding in a taxi to go somewhere, and while I was riding, I was in the back seat of a yellow cab. It was summer, windows are open, and I was standing there, and this a Hells Angels rider clatters into the side of the car, sticks his hand through the back window where I'm sitting, and holds onto the pillar, and he shouts the address of the Hells Angels clubhouse in Manhattan. And the taxi driver did not blink, but drove straight to that address. And I'm sitting in the back going, all right. So I'd seen it happen. I knew it could, his bike had broken down. I knew it could be done. So when I ran out of juice on the way to the boat, you were all waiting on a boat. And I ran out of juice. I was like, Charlie, I'm not going to make it. And you reversed back. I managed to put my hand through your pillar, and you towed me to the boat, and I rolled on. It was amazing. It was fun. The electric was amazing to do. I mean, in one respect, it stopped us being able to sort of do that wild camping that we like, because I love that, riding off and putting a tent up in the cuds, we like to call it, in the middle of nowhere. And it stopped us doing that a bit because we had to be somewhere we could plug in. But in the other respect, I'm so proud that we did it, and I'm glad that, you know, we did something that was difficult, and we made it, you know, in the end. It was
Absolutely.
You know, instead of, you know, because we missed out the camping a lot, but because we had to plug in and get electricity, we would often bump into people, in people's houses and families, and we would, you know, they'd invite us in. I remember one time we plugged into this place, and they invited us in to have lunch with them, and we sat around with their families, and we all had that kind of awkward conversation.
And they got a power cut, and then you went to the next family.
We blew their fuses, and then we would move on.
We once went to a restaurant where we plugged in. They tried so hard to let us plug in, but we kept either we would blow out the restaurant or we'd blow out the kitchen. And then eventually they said, just go away. But it was lovely.
But I think, you know, I think we've been blessed that we met each other, the 4 of us. It's been, well, I think we first met in 2002, actually. So 2003, so it's a 20-odd year friendship, and lots of lovely, great, tremendous memories, as well as it being a business and obviously trying to make documentaries that people like and sharing those experiences. And we've come away with tremendously valuable experiences and adventures, but I would say that there's one moment for yourself, Ewan, that sticks out more than anything else. We've got the clip here that we want to play, but you know what we're talking about, Jam. Do you want to talk about it beforehand and explain how that came to be? And
I mean, when we set off on Long Way Round, and on day 4 we arrived in Prague, and we went to a fortune teller in Prague because these 2 gentlemen thought we should sort of organise some things to see. So we went to this fortune teller, and she said something to Charlie, I don't remember, but she looked at me and she went, you're going to fall in love with a girl on this trip. And I thought, oh, great, that's the last thing we need, isn't it? I'm married, I've 2 kids at home, like that. And it did turn out that she was right, because we were late. By the time, months later, we were in Mongolia, and it was quite hard going. The first week in Mongolia, it rained quite a lot. It was very slippy. I mean, it was amazing. There's no roads there really. You're just always on a track, and that was beautiful and amazing in its own right. You know, we had maps in Mongolian that we would point to people that we met on the road, and then we didn't really speak Mongolian, so that didn't. Anyway, we had our GPS showed only the lakes, and so we could look at the lakes on the GPS, look at the lakes on the map, and kind of figure our way around. Somebody once drew a little map for us, like 1 valley, 2 valleys, 3 valleys, 3 trees. Turn right. We were like, yeah, right. And we were riding along going, yeah, right. And we went 1 valley, 2 valleys. And there's those 3 trees. And we went right. They kept us right. But we were struggling. But they knew the country like the back of their hand. And we were struggling, and we were heading towards Ulaanbaatar. There was a lake. It prompted one of our sayings that we still say today, see you at the lake, because it was just endless. We never were getting closer to the lake. And then we came to a day when we were very tired. I got the maps out, and I said to Charlie, look, we could turn left, and by tomorrow we would be in Russia. We'd be back in Russia, and we'd be back on some proper roads, and we could just get on with it. Because we still had days and days left to get to Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital of Mongolia, where we were heading, and then we were going to cut north back up to Russia. And we were saying left or right, and I think we both got quite jazzed about the idea of getting back on roads and making it easier for ourselves. And so I called Dave on the sat phone, and David said to me, he said, look, don't pull out of Mongolia because it's hard, because I can see that this country has touched you. It's a beautiful place, it's a spiritual place, and don't leave just because it's hard. You might regret it. Whereas if you push on, you might look back and enjoy it for the rest of your life. And I knew immediately as he was talking to me that he was right. And I closed the phone and I said, Charlie, we're going to go to Ulaanbaatar, and we're not going to duck out. And we didn't. And we pushed on, and we eventually got to Ulaanbaatar. And I met a little girl that became my daughter, Jamyan Tetseg Lila Sky, who we met in this address and identification centre that UNICEF had helped to set up. She was a little street girl. She'd been abandoned. She was 2.5 years old. And I didn't know it when I met her, but after speaking to Ev, my ex-wife, after we'd been there, we decided to adopt her. And it took us a long while, but we did. It's an amazing story for me because it changed all of our lives, these trips, but really, that decision to go left or right, you know, the effect of that was massive on, if we'd gone left, you know, I'd never met her, and she wouldn't be my daughter, and I don't know what her life would be like now, or my life would be like now, you know, but here we are. It was a life-changing moment, and that might happen to us.
You never know.
All day, you know, we never know. Yeah, that's
watch history.
Yeah.
Unfold.
Charlie and I went to a street shelter for children, and we were both massively moved by it.
This little one here was found 2 weeks ago, and we'll only talk with this girl here, and they seem to have found some bond together.
We left that day, but I couldn't stop thinking about that little girl. It took nearly 2 years, but eventually we adopted Jamia. And if we turned left, it wouldn't have met her, you know? So that's pretty amazing.
I don't know how he chose me, but I feel like I just feel bad for the other kids. Like, obviously I'm happy that he chose me. Like, I don't know where I would be.
Look after yourself. I love you, sweetheart.
So touched by this little girl and all of the UNICEF projects that we did, but particularly this. And I remember going back to the hotel that evening. We were staying in the hotel, and Ewan came into the room and he sat down in the bed beside me and said, look, I've been really thinking about this, and I want to adopt Jamie, this little girl that we met, and it was so the right thing to do. It was so amazing having you been part of it, and being part of all of us being part of Jamie's life has been incredible to watch.
I wanted to spend an extra day to sort of go around, because we were meant to leave the next day, and I had to ask the guys if they minded staying a bit longer so that we could make connections, like with the British Embassy and whoever, and it was hard to do. The International Adoption Convention is set up to, you apply to adopt a child from another country, but it's not set up for you to adopt someone you've already met, so it's quite tricky to do. But
one of the things that the series doesn't really show, and what was unique about her, and it's so lovely, as she says later in Long Way Up, I don't know why he chose me. She was the tiniest one there. They were mostly 8, 9, 10-year-old girls looking at, and she was being looked after by an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old.
There was another little girl there, but she had brothers. She had three or four brothers. Do you remember?
Yeah.
There was another little family. Yeah, but it was a challenging place. I think that's the beautiful thing about these trips. They sort of open you up emotionally. They sort of peel you open, don't they? And by the time we got to Ulaanbaatar, it was. Anyway, I'm so glad that it worked out that way.
Yeah. But I mean, talking about Mongolia and the places, I mean, a little bit part of that story was when we were talking about that. Someone who's a slightly reckless driver. I'm joking. Actually, that's it. When we were talking on that thing, you know, there was I think it was with Dave as we spoke. Well, Russ, you tell the story about what happened.
Well, Dave and I, Dave had been saying to me, I don't think it was, we're talking about me crashing the car in Mongolia. So I was in the car, Dave and I had been racing a little bit up to that point across the Mongolian steppes. but we had stopped. And I think there was this sort of feeling that we were never getting to Ulaanbaatar, were we? It was just the perennial thing that we weren't making, so we were trying to make tracks. And I come up over this little ridge like this, and I'd been doing a lot of opposite lock driving in Kazakhstan and so I just did a little bit of opposite lock, and then my back wheel caught in one of these sort of cartwheel ruts.
You got to say the first part. Right before you took off, he had, because we took a trailer initially, because we were trailering Claudio's bike, and we didn't want to get rid of the trailer, so you wanted to put that on the roof rack, plus all the petrol and all this other stuff that we had on top. And remember, it was super, super top heavy. And I said, Russ, listen, man, this is like, hold on a second, because this is super top heavy. You know, I've rolled 2 cars. And he looked at me and he said, well, I've rolled none. And he drove. You said that. Yeah, well, I've rolled none. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
I've been doing this 20 years.
You want to see it?
Got a little clip.
Oh my god, 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 oh no.
Are you okay? Are they okay? Oh, just let him off. Good. You both okay? What? Please tell me you're both okay. Jesus Christ. Go, go. Yeah, they're both okay. They're both shaken, obviously.
I don't know, I'm thinking about Russ and Dave and the others, really. I don't even give a fuck about this, to be honest. It'd be great to get it working. I would like to go to them, really, is what I'd like to do.
It was tough. I had the doctor in with me.
Yeah, he was happy.
He wasn't best pleased, was he?
He was really happy with you. Why?
I didn't have our seatbelts on, and as it turned over, it laid on its side like that, so he was on top of me, the 16-stone Russian doctor. My arm was trapped against the thing that you put, and this, was it the stereophonic song?
Yeah.
No,
Coldplay.
Scientist. Do you know their video for the Coldplay song that plays backwards to a car crash? That track was playing when you crashed.
He was trying to kick the windscreen out, and I had these big wraparound sunglasses on, thank God, because there was glass coming down on us. But they pulled us out, and for some miracle again, we were okay. You know, I had this massive bruise, and he covered it in a bandage like this, and poured a whole bottle of vodka on it, bandaged it up again. And when I took it off, when we did get to Ulaanbaatar, it was fine. So carry a lot of vodka. Yeah.
But did you drive the car on? Did you manage to get it
Well,
driving?
we tipped it over on
Yeah.
its four wheels, and David, I was trying to drive this thing, and everyone was going, you're just stupid. So David and I swapped it for one of those little grey Furgon trucks, and so we
Did
just,
you open up the roof of the jack?
we were trying to make it work, but really it was shot.
But it's
So
out there somewhere.
we swapped it for a Furgon, and then Dave and I, we were like, you guys were off at the lake. We said, we got to get to Ulaanbaatar. And we drove that Furgon into a big pothole, and we had a car crash. We hit the other side of the pothole and came out with our heads smashing on the roof. And we broke the half shaft, and we kept driving, but we knew something was wrong because we had a full left-hand lock and we were going straight. Remember that? And you looked underneath and the half shaft was hanging on by a millimetre of steel. So we swapped that Furgon for a rented drive in a Furgon to get, and like Charlie said, by the time we were smelling bad.
All without speaking one word of Mongolian, by the way.
There was. It was extraordinary. But look, I've noticed that in a few minutes we're going to do a Q&A.
Yes.
And I was just thinking if we'll get a little bit ready for that. But in the meantime, Russ, it says here, Russ Malkin.
Well, this is just a little bit of unseen footage because we were experimenting with the idea of putting Claudio and Max in a sidecar.
I've always had a sidecar, and I really like. It's a very odd vehicle, but it's really fun. And I always thought that it would be quite a good shooting vehicle, to have. And when we did the long way up, we met Max. He was our Chilean fixer, who then came back and sat in the back of Claudio's bike. We love Max, and he's a really good addition to the team. And they work very well together. And Claudio is like a one-man band. So to find somebody that you would like to work with like that is great, and it's helpful for. So anyway, we experimented with sidecars, and ultimately they decided that they thought it would be restrictive in terms of if we're filtering through traffic to get somewhere, they wouldn't be able to. I mean, yeah, they might have had a point, but still, and also it feels a little. It's all very good and fun when you're riding the sidecar, but it's actually a little bit scary in the sidecar. And I think probably they felt a bit vulnerable with cameras and stuff. But anyway, we did experiment with it, and here's that.
You and Charlie having a little go.
We're going to have a look at a sidecar.
Got this idea to put Claudio and Max in a sidecar rig. One of them can ride the bike, and the other one can film. They are just so funny. Wait a minute, you're meant to be in there. Oh, what are you doing?
You and I have children, just so you know.
You got what?
I've got children, okay?
Too late for that, Charlie.
Look like you're enjoying yourself. Look. Okay, let's do this. It's in gear. Yeah. I think they're going to want a slightly bigger sidecar. That's my feeling. I think we have to ask Claudio what he thinks.
My dad likes to tell a story about a man who rides up to the traffic lights on his motorbike, and it's red, and he stops at the red light, and he just falls over like that. And as everyone comes to pick up his motorbike, he went, "I took the sidecar off this morning." They're fun. I highly recommend them.
Yeah, they are great fun.
We've got a bit of a Q&A from questions that people have sent in. But the first question on here prompted us to put a little bit of unseen footage. And I think Ross behind the scenes knows which one to play as we speak. So I think it's important that we play this little bit of unseen footage of Ewan. We'll see what it's all about in a minute. That leads us into the first Q&A question.
Unseen by me, by the sounds of it.
So I don't know if Ross could jump to that little piece and see if he can play it. Let's see if it works. Here we go.
Oh God.
I was not expecting this when...
I did my business this morning. Flushed, incinerate. We went up to the sauna, came back, went for a pee, and I opened up, and it was like, half of it was still in there, just like baking. There's only so much water in there. So I used a ball of fizzy water to try and... Other bikes. Just put it in the
did the best I could. I'm so embarrassed about the cleaning lady. If you want a tranquil stay, this is the place.
This is the place.
Did you catch the beginning? That was the most beautiful, serene experience, you know, like country, you know, being in a treehouse in the middle of this forest. But they had incinerating toilets that don't, because you're up in a fucking treehouse. Of course, there's no plumbing or anything. So these things are solar powered, and you put a bag in the toilet before you use it for number twos, like a bag. And then you do your business, and I guess your business goes in the bag, and then you press a lever, and it opens it up, it falls through, and you go about your other business, and it burns it, right? Pure, brilliantly efficient, except for mine, which got stuck. baked Alaska on the side. I was so embarrassed because you know a cleaning lady's coming in there and she's going to go, bloody hell! I tried, I had balls of sparkling water trying to get her away. Nothing. It was baked up. Sorry.
So this leads into our first question.
Yeah, I'm a bit embarrassed now.
No, you go, Russell.
Which is, now we had to do it this way because we weren't able to send a microphone out into the audience, so we've asked people to send questions in online to begin with, and we just shortlisted some of these. And this one, we thought of that clip, and this one's from Emma Phillips from Harrington, Block G, Row C.
Emma? Yeah. Everyone's going to think we made it up.
Doesn't turn up.
Hello.
So there's a mum question. How did you do your washing in Long Way Round? You joked about turning your pants inside out. How did you deal with washing your clothes on these trips?
It was, I think, you know, about every 4 or 5 days or so, we would, we worked it out that we would try and hook up with you guys, because, you know, a lot of the time it was just Claudia, you and myself. But every so often, because we were filming on these little videotapes, you know, it was too risky to leave it for too long, because, you know, that was the TV show, and if something had gone wrong with them, so we would do that, and then we would try every so often we would try to stay somewhere for 2 nights, and then we would try to stay in a hotel, and that's where we would get our washing done.
Yeah.
But so it was not as glamorous as washing them in the river or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we did turn around inside out.
Flip around. There we go. How about Tim Brown, Block 4, Row G? Tim Brown? No?
Too bad.
Really? Okay. How much of the equipment in the filming vehicles is for Russ and myself, for production filming, and how much of it is to support the spares for the bikes? Russ?
Well, I mean, we're quite unusual, really. I mean, on a TV production of our nature, I've worked on some other stuff where they'll have like 30 vehicles and production assistants. There's only normally about 8 of us on the trip. So we're about as low as you can go with regard to filming this thing. So we have the 3 bikes, the 2 cars, and the 2 cars are normally full of things like the medical backup equipment, you know, camping equipment, spares for the bikes if we need it, and the TV stuff. So as Dave knows, in the Rivians, for instance, you've got the chargers and the lenses and the tripods and all the rest of it. But it's a pretty lean crew for doing all the stuff that we do.
And I think it's worth saying it. Sometimes they call them support vehicles. These guys, listen, you've gotten to know them for the past 20 years. They're heroes, man. These 2 guys, Stuart and Charlie. To me, because we're not supporting them. They could have done this on their own. We're there filming it, and you know, we're fans of the show ourselves. We're making the show. They're being in it, and the cars really are there to support the filming of it. So we got a ton of cameras in it, and that's what we're really there to do. I mean, of course, we're friends, so if we're there near each other, we might help. But they do it really all themselves. So that's really what that's about.
except for the paperwork and the,
Honestly, that's the truth. Oh, well, stuff. No, it's important to say it. But Russ, you're up.
Let's see if somebody's in the house. Hayley Gilfedder.
Haley!
Oh!
no, Henry.
Hello, Haley.
Darby. How have you overcome the fear from incidents and injuries on the bikes to allow yourself to get back on them again? And how do you feel getting back on doing that? How do you sort of deal with accidents or difficulties to just keep going?
Well, I think I think if you ride a motorbike, you're always going to, there's always a chance that you might fall off. And I've fallen off a lot, as a kid doing motocross and all of that kind of stuff. And when I did the Dakar Rally and stuff like that. We have a joke about, I always bring up the Dakar Rally. Did I do the Dakar Rally? No, but I do remember when the first crash, when I smashed my legs up, and it always, when it was like when you have a crash, and the first thing you do is you get up and pick up the bike and sit on the bike and go, no, I didn't crash. Did you? No, I didn't. Anyway, I tried to do that, and as I got up and tried to walk, I remember the bottom half of my leg was just flopping around. This blood was just going, I'm thinking, fuck, I'm just flying and then that got worse and worse, and then they said, oh, you dislocated your other leg, and I said, is this normal? And there was a huge dent here, and they go, no, that's not normal. And I'm thinking, fuck, it was Greenland. But anyway, to cut a long story short, finally got off. The next morning, I woke up and I started to really panic because I could see the 3 limbs were gone, and I'm thinking, God, this is going to take a long time. And I was really starting to sort of go in that sort of black hole, and then I realised there was someone else in the room, and I looked around and there was another guy in the bed beside me in this little room for 2 beds, and he was in a really, really bad way. And I remember looking at him and thinking, Christ, I remember looking at myself, and I remember starting to laugh and chuckle to myself, thinking, actually, this isn't so bad. I was, silver lining. So, and it's just when you start thinking, if I could have, should have, would have, might have, had I left the hotel 30 seconds before, or whatever, would never have happened. And so I realised that what's happened, and there's nothing you can do from that. You don't want to define yourself or be stuck in that trauma, and that trauma can be your legs, it can be an injury, or it can be a mental trauma, it can be whatever it is. And the last thing you want to be or do is define yourself on that and get stuck in that trauma and move on.
Callie Lockwood, how do you maintain a balance between capturing the journey for the show and truly immersing yourselves in the local interactions you experience? You guys go.
I think it's all part and parcel of the same thing. We started off doing it this way. We decided to take cameras along with us. We've always maintained that to try and have as Russ says, the lightest footprint. If you turn up with 3 people with shoulder cameras and booms, and you won't have a real interaction with people. But when you have Claudio, who's got a tiny camera, we're wearing radio mics. I mean, we were so lucky to find Claudio von Planter. He is. For a start, we just love him to bits, but he's absolutely amazing, and what he's given us in terms of his talent and his visual skill is amazing. But you don't really notice Claudio, and I think that's what gives us that intimacy with the people that we meet. And maybe because we're filming it, we interact more. Like in this last trip, long way home, we were, also we're in Europe, and people we're coming across towns and people thick and fast, And maybe because we're filming it, we interact more than, otherwise you might just go, oh, let's just carry on, you know, not stop in this town. So I think it gives and takes and in equal measures, probably. And what we're really proud of is it gives us something that you can all see and that people have watched and seem to like, and you know, we're really proud. We were saying earlier, you know, not a week goes by that somebody doesn't come up to me or Charlie or one of us and say, you know, you've inspired us to travel here or do this. And it's not all motorbike stuff, it shouldn't be, it's just anything, but that we're very proud of, I think.
I'm going to jump in now. You go, Charlie.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you.
We're all very polite now.
No.
Really on stage.
No. This is important. And we said it the other day to that rather small group in London. But thank you, all of you, for helping us do it this way. Because it's very difficult in a rather cynical world to tell stories like this. Because everybody wants to know, you know, all the bad stuff. And we have been able to, because of your help, show these sort of stories. So thank you, each and every one of you, for making this wonderful. Making this a series that we can make. It's very hard to do it. And it's good.
We're talking about, you know, stumbling across stories and stuff like that. When we were doing Long Way Home, we stopped off in this town. We were hungry, trying to find something to eat. We stopped in this town. We thought it was a fish and chip place, but it wasn't, and we were just about to leave, and suddenly there was this marching band coming down the street, and there were all these people coming down the street, and then we got sucked into this thing. It was their big celebration of the day. In that part of Germany, they have lots of these clubs who do this target shooting with little rifles. We ended up, and we quickly got swept up with these guys, and they were all blind drunk. Shit-faced. I think it was a Sunday.
Day 3.
It was day 3, and this big guy was showing us around. Yeah, this is the greatest day of my life. And he's, yeah, you come and shoot. So we come down to the shooting range where there's all these little alleys for shooting, and there's a bar there. And people are stealing even more rat house there, and we're sitting taking these shots with this guy who's completely drunk, trying to explain to us how to shoot a rifle. But it was those kind of sort of things that we stumbled across, where Claudio is so great at sort of, you know, getting in there and filming it all. So some of those things that have happened.
Well, one more, Ross. You have one more.
We are coming close to the end of our time. But this one we have to squeeze in. From Chris Woolley, Workshop, with 4 adventures done, what's the next one you guys are thinking?
We've got something up our sleeve.
But I think every time you go to we start to go towards the end of one of the trips, and you're honoured and you really want to get home and you want to see your family, but at the same time you don't really want it to stop either. And so often we talk about other places, and I think maybe to help stop the one you're on.
Yeah, it's very addictive, the whole thing. Very nice.
So there are ideas in the mix. Obviously, talk it through with our broadcasting partner. We need to get it on TV. Broadcasting. We need you all to write into Apple. We need another one.
Thank you.
Listen, it's been absolutely fantastic to talk to you tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've really loved it. We do these trips because we really love them, and it's lovely that you do too. And so we're happy to share them with you, and so happy that you came here to share this night with us. So thank you so much. Thank you.
took at the break didn't come out for some reason. They need to put the house lights up. Oh my God! One more time. 1, 2, 3. Thanks, guys. Thank you for coming.